Let's start with what's changing at the very foundation of how people find you. I don't think this is new to anyone, but we're officially moving from the era of information to the era of intelligence, right? So Google search is now called AI search, right? And we've just made the single biggest update to that iconic search box in 25 years. And again, it's no longer just a place where you type a couple of keywords and hope for the best, right? The search box now expands so you can fully describe exactly what you need in natural language. And more importantly, it gives you immediate access to all modalities. And what I mean by that is, customers can now search with text, they can search with images, they can search with video. We brought AI overviews and AI mode together into this one seamless experience. And now a shopper can really flow effortlessly from a complex question to a personalized response, straight into their follow ups without ever having to restart their search. Right. And I think, it's really time for us to really acknowledge this fundamental fact that, again, Google search is now AI search through and through. And no, there's a reason why I wanted to kind of start here, and why I think this is really important for us because what we're finding is that your customers are not just waiting around for you to adapt, they're already there. Auto buyers have officially entered the AI era, and what we're seeing is that 43% of new car buyers are using some type of AI tool to help them buy a car. And in fact, it's actually out of almost every major retail sector, it's in the auto industry where we're seeing the highest adoption, right? And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense because the car buying journey is incredibly complex. It's a massive financial decision. So the more complex the purchase, the more the consumer is going to want to turn to AI to help them cut through the noise and really try to synthesize all the answers. Um, Yeah, what we're also seeing is that AI users visit 47% more dealers, and they take about 31% more test drives compared to the non AI user. And I know this sounds completely counterintuitive at first glance, because if they have better search tools, then shouldn't they be doing less real world running around? But what research is telling us is that AI is actually not replacing the dealership experience, but instead it streamlines the research so that the users have more time for what they actually value more, which is test driving, or meeting your actual service teams, right? So that means the customers that are walking through your dealerships they're probably more research, they're more intentional, and they're more ready to buy than ever before. Because these shoppers are using AI to build their confidence, they're actually what we're finding is they're actually enjoying more stops along the buying journey. What we're seeing again is on average, an AI powered shopper will utilize 41% more research sources. And by sources, what we mean by that is the digital and physical touch points along the way. So that includes Google search, YouTube, your specific dealer website, right? Social media, and also actual physical dealer visits, right? So, as a business and also as a marketer, uh, what does that mean for you, right? Well, it means that you have significantly more opportunities to engage with your consumers, with your customers, than you used to. But it also raises, a massive question, which is, where is this growth coming from, and how do we show up at those stops? Well, video. One of the single biggest areas of growth we were tracking is this massive shift towards video first platforms, right? The AI powered shopper is using two times more content and video first platforms than the traditional shoppers, right? They want that richer, more visual research journey, and they just don't want to read a text specification sheet. They want to see the cargo space. They want to hear the engine. Uh, they want to see how the infotainment system responds, right? So in that ecosystem, where YouTube is really that number one platform by a long shot. And this preference for that visual depth really explains a major trend that we've been watching closely in our data this year, which is that we're looking at a staggering, this is 21% year-over-year growth for car related content on YouTube. So just to put that into perspective, that growth is happening on top of a baseline that was already insanely high last year.